If you guys want to grow your business to $10 million per year or more, I've got a doozy for you. I've got the exact video you need to watch today, which is how to build your 7-figure sales team. I've done this multiple times, and I can tell you there are many ways to screw this up and only a very narrow path getting it correctly done the first time. I've personally learned the hard way how to waste hundreds of thousands of dollars and spend years spinning your wheels. Trust me, you want to avoid those gray hairs and sleepless nights if at all possible. So in today's training, I'm going to walk you through step by step exactly what I do to build a sales team from a standing start at $0 of revenue per month to $1 million per year and beyond. Before we start, I'm going to assume a few key things about you. Well, really just one thing. I'm going to assume you have at least one solid, repeatable source of leads that you can dial up or down as you so desire. But it's probably not referrals, because that's not something that's in your full control. It's probably also not something like organic content or attending industry conferences, because those are not necessarily something you can dial up and down at will. You'll see why this is so important in a moment. So a few things I know about you right now: you might be facing some or all of the following problems. Getting and keeping skilled salespeople, dealing with inconsistent revenue months. You might be having a show rate problem, getting qualified leads to show up to appointments, dealing with operations being the bottleneck as you close more deals and you're getting higher refunds and chargebacks, and you might be overly dependent on a single lead source, but that's beyond the scope of the video. Other things that could be happening is you could be dependent on one or two hero closers, and when they take vacation, the whole team takes a pause on revenue. So let's dive into my hard-won frameworks for how to solve these. Step one is just getting qualified leads through to the closers' calendars. Now, I remember one client I was working with where we had a truly terrible show rate, and I mean 40 to 50%. And we were doing all the right things. We were sending the reminder texts and emails. We were building value on the setter call. We were sending valuable content before the meeting, double tying down that they could make it. So why did we have such horrible show rates? Well, the solution to this didn't actually involve counterintuitively sending more or better reminders. Here's the counterintuitive truth I discovered in retrospect in my very first inside sales job. As part of a small team of 5 people, and each of us were only getting 1 to 2 calls per day. We were literally playing putt-putt golf in the cubes in our downtime because each of us had so little to do, and we were all afraid of getting fired. We thought, this won't last, for sure we're about to get fired. Now, it turns out, I didn't learn this until years later, but the company was actually doing this to us on purpose. Yes, you heard that right. They were keeping the lead volume very low on purpose because they were trying to test what would happen in a 100% speed to lead environment where we would call every lead as it came in 100% of the time. They wanted to see if sales actually worked under those circumstances before they committed millions of dollars more into more advertising and more ad spend and more budget for buying more leads. In other words, they were learning the sales team's true conversion potentiality. They were learning the potential of sales over the phone, which is what we eventually proved out and grew that department to over 120 sellers, doing $81 million profit per year. And now this is exactly what I would suggest you do. Or if you were one of my clients, this is the first thing I would do. We're going to do the first things first, which is first, we're going to build excess capacity in the sales team. Hire more setters and closers than you need. Ask the setters and closers that you do have to open up their schedules more so that you can handle more leads at all hours of the day and night and the weekends. By overhiring, not only are you going to ensure you get to world-class speed to lead, but you can now test your leads across a variety of different setters and closers, and the talent is going to rise to the top. Now, many fractional sales leaders or sales trainers are going to tell you the next step is just fire everyone who underperforms so that you only have a team of the highest performing people. But we're not going to do that, because the goal here is not to build a sales team where everyone is a high performer. That's not actually how you do that. If you hire a bunch of people and then fire all the low performers, that's not actually going to create a team, believe it or not, where everyone is a high performer. People are going to see that you just threw people away like garbage, and they're not going to stay around, unfortunately. There's a different method to building a team where everyone is a high performer, which I'll get to in a moment, a little bit later in the video. Firing all your low performers isn't going to cut it. Trust me, I tried that before. It does not work. The goal is to build a sales machine that can talk to your prospects literally anytime they want to talk to you, day or night, obviously within reason. So by building sales capacity, you're increasing the total dollars that can flow through your funnel at any one time, and you're solving 2 problems at once. You're solving the low show up rate problem, and you're solving the problem of low or unqualified prospects. Because assuming your marketing is good, always a big assumption, and it's attracting the right people, when you're talking to close to 100% of people within 3 minutes, your setters are going to very quickly learn who is a quality lead and who is not. So they're going to learn who to put on the closer's calendar and who not to put on the closer's calendar. So this is what happened with my client. We had a 45% show rate before with best practices, and we had a 69% show rate after hiring evening and weekend shifts and focusing on speed to lead. So step 1, of your 7-figure journey is simply building excess capacity. I know that's counterintuitive, but I promise you it'll work. Now, let's fix the next thing, which is the churn problem, which is why salespeople leave. You're probably thinking, Drew, if I overhire to this extent, I'm just going to be churning a load of salespeople, right? And the answer to that is only if you want to be churning a load of salespeople. This finally dawned on me when I was sitting in an exit interview with one of my best salespeople. Let's call him Charles. I had personally hired and coached him to close over 50% on a new offer to him. Now, I was pretty down on myself because I thought I had done a great job helping him become an excellent closer. But he said to me, Drew, I love working with you. I love the team, but I'm just not getting enough opportunity to make the money that I need to make in this offer. And going back through his calendar and pipeline, I had to admit he was right. He was only really on track to make 60 grand on target earnings. So this brings me to the only 2 reasons that salespeople churn. And I've done loads and loads and loads of exit interviews, guys. I've hired over 500 salespeople. I've had to fire or terminate for cause over 50 in my day. And I've also done probably 100 where the salesperson churns on their own accord. And I can tell you there's only really 2 real reasons that salespeople leave. Number 1 is I can't make as much money as I wanted to in this role, which includes I got a better offer where someone was offering me more money, which is not always true, right? But we know people go for the higher salary often. And then 2 is I hate my boss. So if you have a sales leader now, or if you are the founder that people eventually hate, if you're a micromanager, or if you're someone who's low on self-awareness, if you don't really enjoy meeting with people every day and helping them succeed and pouring into them, then you're not going to be an effective sales leader, and you're probably not the right person to lead your sales team. And people are probably going to churn because of you, because you don't want to spend every single day with them, because you don't want to listen to them cry about their personal life, because you don't want to delve into the nuances of their personal problems that prevent them from becoming a 50% closer. Now, what if I told you there was a disgustingly simple solution for both problems, and you could solve them permanently? And further, that not only does it solve those 2 problems, it also takes care of another number of other pernicious problems that plague most sales teams, such as it's really expensive to hire good salespeople, the competition is fierce for them, it's hard to keep them around, they always complain about pay, they never fill out their CRM after calls, they never fill out their end-of-day forms, they waste good leads, then they quit. What if we could solve all 7 or 8 of those problems at once? Here is how we're going to do that. Step 2, build an environment, build a team they never want to leave. And in fact, build a team so good that your current salespeople are going to refer all their friends, even if their friends are not salespeople, to come work with you. That's how fun and exciting and enriching the environment is. So here's what happens when you do that. Before we get to, okay, Drew, how do I do that? And trust me, the answer is not nap pods and foosball tables. Here's what happens after you do that. You suddenly get insanely cheap people leads, meaning you've never hired salespeople this cheaply before. Where it used to cost you $7,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 to hire and recruit a salesperson, you now get for almost 0, maybe 500, maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000. 2, your hiring funnel suddenly converts much better to hires at a lower expense. So whereas you might have to, in previous times, you might have had to review 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 resumes to get 1 sales hire. Now you might have to look at 5 and you get 1 sales hire. Because they have friends at work, once you hire some of their friends who are going to be a great fit for the position, salespeople churn at much lower rates. Look, I'll be honest with you guys. People are going to have tremendous loyalty to a team and an organization where they have a friend at work. One of the biggest reasons that determine whether people drop out of school or leave an organization or leave a city or a town or a county is do they have friends there? We are social creatures. When you create a social environment where people like to come and hang out with their friends every day, they're not going to want to leave that environment, guys. Also, because people are happier working with their friends, they're going to perform better, they're going to be more satisfied, and they're going to ask for less money. And then because of the camaraderie and the community, your team, assuming they have strong leadership, trends towards becoming cult-like in the best possible way. So, decent outcomes, I'm sure you'd agree. How do we actually go about doing this? Here is a very abbreviated playbook of how to build a sales cult. And this could be its own video, its own training. Maybe I'll create that later. Comment down below if you want me to create that. By the way, here's an actual screenshot up here from one of my reviews when I had built one of these teams. Drew's dedication to this makes the team into a borderline cult in the best possible way. So here's the very abbreviated playbook. Number 1, people are paid well for the work they do. Cheaping out on sales talent is the fastest way to hamstring your business forever. Pay above market. You want above market talent. You can't buy A player talent with a C player budget. If you overpromise on comp and then underdeliver, people will leave and they'll tell all their friends about how awful your company is, and you will never get any of their friends to join. I've seen so many stubborn business owners think that cheaping out on talent is the way to save money and build margin, and it's absolutely wrong. That is the worst possible thing you could do for your sales team, your salespeople, your sales leaders. Your business will lose market share to those companies that will compensate people, and therefore they get all the top talent, They outsell you, you go under, you fail, they succeed, they take all the market share. 2, the comp plan needs to be simple, transparent, and don't change it. Get something that works, get something that's proven to work, get an uncapped commission plan that people can actually make good money at, and then don't change it. I've seen business owners where they have 6 different comp plans running at once. This is a recipe for disaster, it's a recipe for churn, turnover, and you're never gonna have consistent revenue months because you're not managing a single comp plan that actually works. You're managing a hodgepodge of comp plans, all testing different things, and none of them are really effective. 3, the leader of those salespeople is really, really, really good. I hate to say it, but a leader of a great sales organization is worth their weight in gold, literally. I'm not kidding about that. Because a good sales leader could create 10, 11, 12, 20, 50, 80, $100 million per year in revenue or profit for your organization. That would be a lot more than their weight in gold, in fact. People join companies and they quit bosses. If the salespeople's immediate supervisor isn't pouring into them daily, isn't adding value to their work through every meeting every day, if that person is not an empathetic listening ear who nevertheless holds and enforces strong boundaries and strong standards for the team, if that person is not casting an aspirational vision for them to follow, if that person is not causing measurable improvements in skill levels week to week, then that person is going to cause unnecessary churn and cost. Number 4, this one I never hear talked about. New hire training needs to be off the charts thorough and detailed, with oodles and oodles of practice time and real-world call listening examples. Now, I've seen some business owners try to automate the entire onboarding system for salespeople. Mistake. Do not do that ever, unless you're selling, I guess, widgets at a massive margin and they cost $250 each. Look, having someone on your team who is a genuine whiz at teaching and training is a game changer. Give them every new hire class and have them do the same training over and over and over, iterate as they get better. Measure them on how quickly each class ramps to KPI and expect them to get faster or innovate how quickly we get to KPI over time. Now, within reason, there's a certain curve, a learning curve that you're never going to collapse. You can augment it with AI, but you still need a live human sales trainer because people learn best from other people. Now, let's talk about reversing the Thunderdome of sales dynamic that we created up above, because we previously solved a previous problem, which was show rate and sales capacity, but that always introduces new problems, which is now we have too many people. So we'll have to continuously push leads to our top performers so they have an abundance of leads. And then we have to allow the low performers to either move to other places in the organization, or eventually they might just self-select out, or you have to show them the door. Now, this is the point at which you can start scaling primarily with A-player salespeople, because overall team culture is going to be great because only A players are on the team. Every A player is getting fed enough leads to make as much money as they want, and leads are uncapped for them. 2 or 3, your offer or business becomes a destination where the best salespeople want to go and will fight each other to get in. Think Apple or Tesla, who have way more job applicants than they can conceivably use in a year. 4, the supply of A players to your business begins to outstrip your demand for closers. And then 5, this is going to keep your existing team extremely sharp, because when they see everybody else come in, when there's a number 1 guy or gal and they see a new person come in and quickly rise up the leaderboards and challenge them for the number 1 or number 2 spot, they're not going to rest on their laurels. The biggest problem with hero salespeople is oftentimes they go unchallenged for too long, they start slacking, and they start underselling, underproducing their potential. So keeping a great pipeline of other A players coming in is a great way to keep that going. Let's talk org. It is possible for your team to sell $10 million with 10 salespeople, because each salesperson can sell $1 million a year, but it's better not to assume this. In case you need a little bit of a structure, here's the best way to do it. You need a dedicated manager for every 8 folks. That is a Navy SEAL rule. The Navy SEAL doesn't ask anyone to be in leadership with more than 8 direct reports. So that is your magic number, rule of 8. Separate setter and closer managers. It's very rare, unlikely that one person can do both well. It's just not most likely going to happen. How to scale. Once you get 3 to 4 setters or closers, or 3 setters and closers if they're doing full cycle, promote one to be team lead. Here's the team lead rule. They carry a bag 80% of the time, and then they coach and manage others 20% of their time, or 60-40, whatever works better for your business, but it's going to be some rough equivalence to that. They're mostly selling, but then they're also coaching. Call listening, they're coaching and feedback, one-on-ones weekly. They typically don't do time cards, vacation, PTO, sick approvals, pay approval, or other issues. If you're asking them to do that, they're really more of a manager, and they should be a full-time manager role. If they're having to approve time cards, vacation, sick time, PTO, keep track of where people are, keep track of if people are observing company regulations, that's more of a full-time manager role. TLs can naturally graduate to managers as the team grows. So once you have 8 frontline sellers, you get 1 manager. Hopefully that makes sense. Managers do all the above plus all the employee administrivia. They also do weekly team times, the team hype, team culture, team strategy, and they manage leads. So they would manage the team leads underneath them. So you might have a team that's big enough where you would have 8 team leads and they would report to one manager, who's effectively at that point your sales director. Managers do not carry a bag, they do not carry quota. They're responsible for total team performance, and they make a base plus an override on top of the team's performance. In your compensation structure, you generally want to set aside 20% of your margin for the sales and revenue teams, which is usually 10 to 20% on cash collected for the closers and the setters. You can split that up however you want, but I'd recommend 10 and 2, 10% for the closers and 2% for the setters, and then 3 to 5% for the manager override. A really good manager is going to need 5% of total commission. So that gives you about 15 to 20%. Okay, so what if your team grows beyond 8 people and 1 manager? You're going to stick to the process of leadership qualified seller goes to a team lead, goes to a manager. It's very, very hard and rare that you can hire an outside sales manager and have them come in. It can happen, but it's better if you have the option to have homegrown leadership step up from within the ranks. The reason being, they've sold the thing at a high level. They're very successful selling the thing. Their coaching is going to be very much respected and revered, as opposed to someone you bring in from the outside. Once you have 3 to 4 managers managing 24 plus sellers, you should bring in a director. The director just does strategic direction for the entire department. They're responsible for the performance of the entire department, payment and performance management of the managers, one-on-ones with the managers, team meetings with the managers, intermittent quarterly skip levels with the sellers to ensure they gather feedback on how the managers are performing. This is how you actually manage managers. You get the sellers, the people under them, to report up, do a 360 review feedback, and you figure out who the bad boss is. You figure out who can't give feedback. You figure out who isn't helping people improve, and then you get rid of that person and you promote someone else that's actually going to do those things. The director is also responsible for hiring and firing managers. Now, what is a leadership qualified seller? It's not your top seller. Only once have I seen this work in a decade plus. The top seller is rarely leadership qualified. And I'm talking about the number 1 seller consistently for 9 months, the person that breaks all the records and just destroys everybody else. That person usually doesn't have the leadership qualities you need. Performance is usually good, above standard, but it's rarely your top seller. It's going to be top third of your sellers, maybe even top 5, top 10 of sellers, depending on how big the team is. They have no other non-performance issues. They're punctual, they're high discipline, they're high conscientiousness. They're also low ego, low conflict, high propensity to help others, very empathetic. They're not always overly empathetic or overly social. In other words, it's not everyone's best friend. It's not necessarily the person that everyone confides in, because those people are usually lacking in boundaries and they're way too close, too friendly with everyone on the team, which means they usually can't do any discipline or mentorship. They should carry themselves with quiet competence. They're respected by the team for their demeanor. They're able to advise all other personality types. You see them getting along with everyone. You see no interpersonal conflicts whatsoever with them on anyone else on the team. It helps if they have previous leadership experience. Usually these people have previous sports leadership experience. They could be prior military as well, with some level of leadership, and someone who carries and sets culture. So a culture carrier. So I would always wear suits when I was in an in-person selling environment. And I had one guy who jumped on the board that bandwagon right away, and he would always wear suits. And then that started a ripple effect of, oh, not just Drew, our team lead is wearing suits, but this guy, Mark, is wearing suits too. And then everyone else, all the males and a lot of the women also began dressing more professionally and dressing to a higher standard. And that was just one tiny tweak where someone can be a culture carrier and they can start a movement within the team. And that is incredibly powerful. Those are the people that you should be looking at as a leadership qualified seller. Okay, now none of this stuff is really hard to do in isolation, but the real trick is getting it all working together and getting it synchronized. So when you get it right, you're not only going to maximize salesperson lifetime value, you're going to create a borderline cult where the sales team is raving fans of the sales team itself, and they're going to get more people on board the sales team very cheaply. And they're going to be good quality people that you don't have to vet that hard. When you get it wrong, you're going to be helplessly riding the revenue roller coaster. Maybe this sounds familiar. It's up one month, it's way down the next. There's no consistency and you can't predict it and you can't forecast it. You're going to churn people needlessly and expensively. You're going to burn hundreds or thousands of leads. You're going to burn dollars on hiring, training, recruiting, and marketing. The leads won't be sold correctly. You'll incur reputational damage, operational debt. You'll incur refunds and chargebacks, and people not actually starting with your service or product, leaving you bad reviews. All kinds of bad things are going to happen. And it's extremely hard to pull out of this death spiral, which is why I recommend you take the time to get it right the first time. The next problem, speaking of roller coasters, is once you've created a truly brag-worthy sales teams and they're breaking records and bringing in tons of revenue and customers every month, is that fulfillment will probably break, meaning you will be pushing too much volume to your fulfillment team for them to actually get things done and fulfill for everybody. You're forcing 2 to 3x the volume through that it was built for, because you scaled so fast and so smoothly. That's actually a desired outcome, is operation starts breaking. Now you might be saying, hey, Drew, the sales team really shouldn't have anything to do with fulfillment, but they do. And that's the key that actually unlocks the third part of the 7-figure sales team. Let's go into it. Customer journey, 3 teams, 1 journey. And I'm going to tell you a story to illustrate how the 7-figure sales team will need to do 2 very powerful things in order to enable those 7 figures of revenue to come through the door without breaking fulfillment and customer service. Now, when I was in the process of building my first 7-figure sales team, I made a point to create 2 standing meetings monthly. One was with marketing, and the other was with fulfillment and customer success and the operations side of the business. When I sat down with marketing, I was feeding back to them the exact words our ideal customers were saying on sales calls. And this allowed them to further dial in marketing and ad spend, bringing us more qualified leads from the ad unit level, and which further streamlined everything in the funnel. And what I would hear from marketing is she would be sitting in the meeting with me and she'd be like, oh, this is really good. Oh, I'm writing this down. Oh, this is good. Oh, that's great. So I'm saying, customers are saying this. They're saying they feel trapped. They're saying they feel that they're like going underwater. They feel that they're trying to breathe underwater. All these little key phrases and verbatims that the customers would say to the sales team, I was feeding it back to marketing. Marketing can then plug that into the ad unit level of the ads and the marketing collateral. And then in the copywriting, it'll bring in more people. And they're like, oh, they're speaking my language. How do they know exactly how I'm thinking about this problem? And it's because I carried the water back to marketing and they piped it into the marketing materials. With fulfillment and customer success, I was getting verbatims and talk tracks from them on how the customers were experiencing the sales call, ensuring that what we were selling was an exact match for what they were getting. If there was any confusion or they were throwing things back on sales of like, oh, well, sales told me this would happen or sales told me to expect this, then I would use those exact verbatims and go back and change the sales script, change the sales flow so that we were clarifying on the points where people were clearly misunderstanding. And we were spending more time pulling apart the expectations of fulfillment and what they were going to get on the back end. I was also gathering data from our kickoff calls to ensure there was a total continuity and a warm handoff between the 2 departments so no promises get lost in translation. This is how sales can take responsibility for ensuring that refunds and chargebacks don't get out of hand. And that's exactly what we were doing. So marketing, sales, and fulfillment should be 3 ships sailing in unity through the night. Every handoff between internal teams is an opportunity to break things down and lose people. From marketing to sales and from sales to fulfillment. The only real way to have a harmonious customer journey is to sync up and make sure that messaging and delivery are really continuous and frictionless across this continuum. So this is really to create a structure where sales is sitting in the middle and feeds back to marketing and feeds forward to fulfillment. And the customer journey is one synchronous journey. 3 teams were rowing together in harmony. So what happens when you do this? Your marketing gets continuously better and it's always current with the market rather than going stale. Your ads are going to continue to convert while your competitors' ads get stale and they get skipped. Your CPL and CAC, cost per meeting, are going to stay manageable even in a sophisticating market, which is going to be key for your margins. Refunds and chargebacks, churn and complaints are going to stay low and your bad reviews are going to go down. Cross-department ideas are going to help the company scale with more efficient ideas and processes just by having time to sit down and discuss it bi-weekly. If you complete those 3 steps, my friends, you are going to be ahead of 90 to 95% of business owners, and you are going to have a freeway to a 7 or even 8-figure sales team. If you need any help with this process, go ahead and comment down below. So again, just to recap the 3 steps to 7 figures: Thunderdome sales team. Beyond Thunderdome, just overhire and create a capacity machine so you can service close to 100% of qualified leads as possible. Capacity first, retention of salespeople second. To retain salespeople, build a sales cult. It's so compelling and positive that people refer their friends and they never want to leave, which solves your recruitment and hiring problems basically forever. And then 3, customer journey, build a 3-team structure so that marketing, sales, and fulfillment work hand in glove to drive down CAC and refunds complaints, which is going to create a virtuous upward cycle of more positive reviews while driving lower acquisition costs. Now, to really dial in the sales team, you're probably wondering, Drew, the next thing is, how do I make sure that the sales team itself is really dialed in and they can continuously win, which you can learn about in our next video where we talk about the only 7-figure sales script you need to get to $1 million. Go ahead and hit that video now, and I'll see you there.